promoting a healthy environment. It's the air we breathe. Clean, safe water. Responsible management of our natural resources. We protect and restore for a sustainable future. Environment matters.
If it's something that's going to come out of the process, no matter what we do, as far as it's one of the byproducts. So finding a recycling method for it was critical.
And that's exactly what they did. Well, check out the process at Toyota Motor Manufacturing of West Virginia that's turning what was previously waste material into new steel. Plus,
there's not a lot of fish habitat out in these reservoirs. They're kind of like bathtubs. So by adding these Christmas trees and by cutting trees along the shoreline, we're adding habitat.
New life for some old Christmas trees. How a long-running partnership between the DEP and the Division of Natural Resources is keeping the trees out of the landfill and providing improved fishing for anglers at lakes all around the state. Hello everyone and welcome to a new season of Environment Matters. I'm Greg Adolphson. Work continues to contain an underground fire in an abandoned Preston County mine complex. Crews have completed the first emergency phase of the operation, but there's still much work to do. This was what the Broken Run site looked like last year when the project was first moved to emergency status. Since then, crews have timbered all the salvageable trees and removed the remaining ground cover, exposing the soil. That allowed contractors to begin sealing off the openings where the air is getting in and the smoke is getting out.
Along the outcrop, we actually grouted the mine openings and then covered the grout with dirt. So the thought was around the outcrop, cover the mine voids or the mine openings, fill those mine openings with grout and dirt to prevent the cross ventilation that was existing or occurring. And then on top of the mountain, fill the cracks that were acting like chimneys for the fire itself. So we plug up the chimney and then we close the air vent on the bottom, and hopefully that would help slow or smother the fire.
One of the problems dealing with underground fires is the earth itself. The rock and soil that surrounds the fire acts as a giant insulator, holding in heat and hot gases and making excavation dangerous. Addressing that, along with sealing off the fire to prevent it from spreading to other parts of the underground complex, are the first jobs of Phase 2, which is now underway.
So we will drill a grid pattern on top of the knoll in a staggered series of holes, fill those areas, fill the holes with a grout, and it'll be a pressurized grout that we use to make sure that we fill all the voids. And then once we finish the two grout curtains, we will move to the knoll that you're familiar with, where the smoke and cracks exist.
Crews will then inject Class A firefighting foam and pressurized grout into the burning areas of the mine complex to help smother the fire. Once that's complete, crews will excavate the area adjacent to Eliason Road to construct a cutoff trench between the county road and the fire.
If we let them excavate the material as is, the flames will be so intense that it will be dangerous for the contractors to work in that condition. So by grouting the areas that are on fire will also help to reduce the amount of fire that the contractor has to work with, which will make it for a safer work environment.
Finally, workers will backfill sections of the high wall and cap the site with soil to further reduce air infiltration, which will help suffocate any remaining fire. The first phase cost $200,000. Phase 2 will cost $4.8 million. Rice says it's the largest construction project the division will take on this year. He expects the work to take the better part of a year to complete. Underground fires and abandoned mines are a problem throughout the state and are expensive to deal with. The DEP's Office of Abandoned Mine Lands and Reclamation estimates it would take nearly $1 billion to deal with just the underground fires in West Virginia that we know about. That's why they're only dealt with when they threaten public safety, and in this case, nearby homes and a road. DEP Cabinet Secretary Austin Caperton recently toured the site with some local journalists as part of Governor Jim Justice's Save Our State campaign. The DEP's Jake Glantz was there and joins us now with the details.
Greg, the governor's Save Our State campaign focuses on potential cuts to state programs and services if more revenue isn't added to balance the budget. While the DEP's Office of Abandoned Mine Lands and Reclamation is not funded through general revenue, it's a good example of how interconnected state government is and how budget cuts could ultimately affect projects like Broken Run. In the DEP's Division of Mining and Reclamation, coal mine inspectors are paid half through federal funds and half through general revenue. Cutting general revenue could start a domino effect that begins with layoffs or unfilled vacancies. Fewer mine inspectors would result in longer delays for permit approvals, which would lead to less coal being mined. Less coal being mined means less per ton tax paid to severance funds. And here's where that impacts the AML program. The Office of Abandoned Mine Lands and Reclamation gets its funding from the per ton tax on mined coal, and that amount is matched through federal funding. That connection and its potential unintended consequences were at the heart of Secretary Caperton's message.
We're at the mercy of the federal government in terms of getting funds for this type of activity. And with the current state of our state budget, where we're facing a $500 million deficit, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to grab state funds to speed up or do more work other than the federal dollars we have to work with. And another thing that's important to know is that if we lose general revenue funds, which we take very little general revenue from the state, we take $6.5 million, and that's down, I think, over the past 5 years or so from $11 or $12 million, give or take. If we continue to lose our general revenue fund that finances some of our inspectors that do other work, then it'll potentially divert away from this program. So we're really desperate to see the governor's budget and the balancing of the budget in the state of West Virginia. And we don't think it can be done just through budget cuts, because we're going to have to cut vital programs, and we don't want to do that.
As we've reported earlier, the Abandoned Mine Lands program already receives substantially less funding than is needed to abate the thousands of hazards associated with abandoned pre-law mining in West Virginia. Every dollar received is critically important for the continuation of AML work around the state. That's especially true with the program scheduled to receive its final federal grant in 2021.
What we're facing, though, as a state is the existing inventory. So the AML inventory, as it exists today, is close to $4 billion. So between now and the end of our program, our annual grant is based on funding that comes in, and that funding comes through coal that's mined. So the more coal that's mined, the larger the AML grant comes to the state. So, through responsible coal mining, you can, produce jobs in the state as well as be able to fund projects like this.
Secretary Caperton also toured sites in Martinsburg and Hinton to highlight the importance of the DEP's Large River Ambient Monitoring Program, a program funded entirely through general revenue. We'll have that story next time. For Environment Matters, I'm Jake Glantz.
Thanks, Jake. Following the lead of Governor Justice, the DEP has eliminated 35 vehicles from its fleet. This represents half of the agency's current number of pool vehicles and about 9% of the overall fleet. The vehicles will be sent to surplus and eventually offered for sale to the public. Since they won't be replaced with new vehicles, the move is expected to save the state more than $250,000 a year over the next 4 years by not only eliminating lease payments from the books, but also insurance, gas, and maintenance costs as well. Going forward, all agency vehicles will now be retained for at least 5 years and 120,000 miles, unless they have unusually high maintenance requirements. At the end of that period, if they're still in good shape, the DEP will keep them in the fleet instead of buying new ones. The DEP is also looking to other cost-saving measures, including continuing to upgrade the lighting in the Charleston headquarters building from fluorescent to LED, a process that will pay for itself in about 2.5 years and save on future utility cost. Also making the switch to LED lighting, Toyota Motor Manufacturing of West Virginia. The plant in Buffalo uses thousands of light fixtures to illuminate the workspaces. Out on the plant floor, the old 450-watt gymnasium lights were first replaced with more efficient fluorescent lights, but now they're being upgraded again to LED fixtures.
In terms of your material and your life of the bulbs and everything, fluorescents aren't the best option either. So When the LED lights have become more technically feasible, cost effective, we've now begun the switch to all LED in the plant. LEDs are much more energy savings, particularly in the non-occupied, because they can dim and offer a much higher energy savings. And it doesn't give you the impression of the lights being off, so you can dim them down and save 80% of your energy, and yet you can still have a smooth operation that doesn't disrupt because the light turns off.
We'll hear more from Mark a little later in the program about how an innovative process at the plant is turning waste material from the manufacturing process into a profitable recycling product. The DEP's Office of Environmental Remediation has accepted a voluntary remediation program application from CSX Transportation to address environmental conditions at the site of the 2015 derailment. On February 16 of that year, 27 tank cars filled with Bakken crude oil jumped the tracks in the Fayette County town of Mount Carbon. 20 of those cars leaked part or all of their contents, and 19 were involved in the ensuing fire. No one was hurt, but a residence near the track was destroyed and oil spilled out onto the tracks, rail bed, and adjacent soil. The site butts up against the Kanawha River and Armstrong Creek. CSX will work with the DEP's Office of Environmental Remediation to identify human health and ecological risk with the current and possible future uses of the site and establish applicable remediation standards for the project and see that those standards are maintained. Once it's finished, CSX will submit a final report to the DEP for review and approval. West Virginia's Voluntary Remediation and Redevelopment Act encourages voluntary cleanups of contaminated sites as well as the redevelopment of abandoned or underutilized properties to encourage economic development on brownfield sites. SWRF? No, that's not a quote from Scooby-Doo. It's what they call the shavings, chips, and the fine metal particles that are a byproduct of the machining, grinding, and the polishing process at Toyota Motor Manufacturing of West Virginia. The DEP's Brianna Hickman joins us now with more on how what was previously a waste product is now an asset.
Greg, the plant in Buffalo produces hundreds of thousands of engines and transmissions each year and generates tons and tons of SWRF. A couple of years ago, the plant received a National Pollution Prevention Award for coming up with a way of separating the waste metal shavings from the liquid coolant that ended up mixed in during the machining process. That allowed the coolant to be recycled, but left the problem of what to do with the SWRF. Enter the machine they call the pucker. Making the parts that make up the engines and transmissions assembled at the plant every day takes a lot of precision machining to turn out the raw castings and forgings into finished pieces.
One of the wastes that Toyota produces is SWRF, which it sounds like a funny name, but it is a fine metal paste produced from wet grinding processes. Normally, or in the old times, it used to be landfilled, and since Toyota doesn't landfill any materials anymore, we had to find a reusable method to reclaim that material.
Toyota set a goal of zero landfill back in the year 2000, which placed major emphasis on reduce, reuse, and recycle.
For SWRF, it's something that's going to come out of the process no matter what we do, as far as it's one of the byproducts. So finding a recycling method for it was critical simply because of the weight. For Toyota Motor Manufacturing West Virginia, it's approximately 50% of our total solid waste. So it's a pretty significant amount.
Getting rid of the moisture was only part of the problem. Once the paste dried out, the fine metal particles became highly combustible. So combustible, it would vaporize when placed in a blast furnace.
A lot like burning steel wool, if you think of it that way. But one of the things with this new process is we're making pucks, which it's essentially where the machine is pressing it so hard that it stays in that shape and produces small bricks of material that can then be recycled, and it's actually sent up to AK Steel where they make that into new steel.
The SWRF goes into the machine where powerful hydraulic rams squeeze it together. The process can turn out a puck every few seconds.
We actually mix in a little bit of, we call it CIB, but it's cast iron borings. So there's a little bit of other types of metal mixed in, but it allows it to stay together. This metal is actually also brought from Georgetown, Kentucky, from our powertrain plant in Georgetown. So it's a multiple sites feed into this, but it's about a puck every 8 or 9 seconds. So A lot of material going through that machine.
But don't try playing hockey with these pucks.
Probably about 30 pounds each. So they're fairly hefty, but again, the main key is that they stay together to make a usable metal product.
And bottom line, besides helping the environment, it helps Toyota's bottom line. The Swarf went from a material that was costing Toyota to dispose of to one that's now bringing in an income. For Environment Matters, I'm Brianna Hickman.
Thanks, Brianna. The DEP has made it easier for folks to report illegal open dumps in their neighborhoods. Just go to our website, dep.wv.gov, and click on the link in the Spotlight section at the bottom of the page. This will take you to the reporting form. Just fill in the details and hit submit, and folks from the DEP's Pollution Prevention and Open Dump program will investigate and begin the process of getting it cleaned up. And with the annual Make It Shine statewide cleanup underway, we've also created a series of public service announcements featuring Cabinet Secretary Austin Caperton. Give it a look.
One of our state's greatest assets is its spectacular natural beauty. Unfortunately, not everyone respects that. I'm Austin Caperton, Secretary of the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection. Illegal open dumps like this one in Kanawha County are more than just an eyesore. They harm the environment and public health. Help us prevent this kind of pollution in West Virginia. Report anyone you see dumping trash like this. Let's keep West Virginia wild and wonderful.
We recently told you about a Christmas tree recycling program in Marion County that delivers live trees to people's homes and then, after the holidays, picks them up and replants them in one of the county parks. Well, there's one recycling program that's been going on for even longer. It's a partnership between the DEP and the West Virginia Division of Natural Resources that takes used Christmas trees and turns them into fish habitat. The DEP's Terry Fletcher has the details.
It's 15 degrees and windy, and the most popular spot on this January afternoon at the annual Christmas tree drop-off at Charleston's Capitol Market is close to the space heater. Despite the cold, the turnout is steady.
The turnout has been wonderful. We've had so far today about 250 people come through, and we've collected a little over 600 trees, which is a fantastic turnout for as cold as it is today. So we're very pleased.
From an environmental perspective, the tree collection serves two purposes. It helps keep the trees from taking up valuable space in a landfill, but when placed in a lake to serve as fish attractors, it's a completely different story.
Well, these trees are going to be headed to about a half a dozen reservoirs across the state, every place from Beech Fork and East Lynn up to Tigard and Stonewall Jackson, and they'll be used for fish attracting structures in those reservoirs. The fish like to orient themselves to anything that supplies some cover, so these supply in the summertime shade and also places where other fish might come and feed, and then the game fish will come and feed on those smaller fish. So all in all, it's a great place for fish and for anglers as well.
Fast forward to a few weeks later, and about 30 degrees warmer, and crews are hard at work placing the trees. Here at Beech Fork, they're being added along the shoreline in areas where trees were placed in previous years.
Most of these reservoirs in the state are used for flood control, and the Corps would like to keep them nice and open and the spillway open, so there aren't any obstructions. They don't have any problems with that. So there's not a lot of fish habitat out in these reservoirs. They're kind of like bathtubs. So by adding these Christmas trees and by cutting trees along the shoreline, we're adding habitat, actually just attractors when they're just one or two, but when you group a whole lot of them, it actually changes the habitat and improves it.
The work is done while the lakes are drawn down to their winter pool levels, making it easier for crews to more accurately place and anchor the trees. Because the trees decay over time, they must be replaced periodically to remain effective as fish attractors.
The lifespan is relatively short. There have been studies done looking at various types of added fish attractors, from plastic to Christmas trees, and these really last the least amount of time. But it's very cost effective. They're easy to get. We've got blocks donated from places, so altogether it's real easy and simple, even though it doesn't last quite as long. It's maybe 1 to 3 years, I'd say. One of the big things one of the big issues is just how it's inundated with water and then it's dry for a little bit of time, and then the same over and over again. So when it dries out, that's kind of one of the things that speeds up the decay of the tree.
When the lakes are brought back to their summer pools, this will all be under 10 to 20 feet of water. The DNR also placed some of the tree bundles in deeper water using a boat.
It's very effective. I hear from anglers all the time, and it's something that I've been talking with the Corps a lot. Another thing we like to do here are just cutting trees along the shoreline. And as I mentioned, because it's like a bathtub in a lot of these reservoirs, all the fish really congregate around these places. They really use them a whole lot. So, and it also gives an angler something to target when they know where that is. These lakes and reservoirs are really hit a lot. There are lots of tournaments, so it gives them something to target when they're out here, and their fishing success improves.
The DNR has been seeking trees in the lakes for more than 30 years. This is the 14th year for their partnership with the DEP. In Wayne County, I'm Terry Fletcher for Environment Matters.
Just up the road in Huntington, a local watershed group is working with 2 area grade schools to teach students about aquaculture, ecology, and environmental stewardship by bringing catfish to the classroom. The DEP's Mike Huff explains.
Some visitors from Cincinnati got to meet their new roommates for the next few months. Students at Southside Elementary and Meadows Elementary in Huntington will feed and care for 24 channel catfish brought in from a fish farm in Ohio. The fish are part of the Four Pole Creek Watershed Association's Catfish in the Classroom program. Four Pole Creek is just a few blocks from both schools.
Kids are going to learn a little bit about channel catfish. They're going to raise those fish and see how they grow throughout the spring. They're going to kind of take some ownership of the creek, and hopefully they'll be more willing to protect that creek and view it as a valuable resource when they get older. They're also going to use a scale to measure the fish and weigh the fish, and so they'll be able to use graphs to track that growth throughout the couple of months. We worked with the West Virginia DEP and the West Virginia DNR to get permissions to raise the catfish here in the school, and to raise them for 2.5 months and then put them back into Four Pole Creek.
The program is funded through the Stream Partners program. The Ashland, Kentucky PetSmart helped out with 2 60-gallon aquariums and related equipment. Organizers hope the program sparks a lifetime of environmental stewardship.
Introducing the material is easy. Maintaining that interest is important because the values that they have now, that we instill now about the need for protection of water and water quality and drinking water and those animals that live in the stream, is going to go a long way when they're adults to helping us continue to protect that resource.
And it's a message that seems to be resonating with these 4th graders.
I think that the catfish are a really good way for our school to help the environment.
How is that?
I think because we're releasing more fish into the environment, so it'll help the environment with the natural habitat.
I think the fish are really cute and they're really cool. I think that it's nice to have fish here because there's not a lot of schools that really have it, so it's nice to be sort of different.
This project is kind of a precursor to our water conservation fair that we do here each year, and so we're teaching the children how the watersheds are related and how the things that happen in Four Pole Creek end up in the Ohio River, and about water pollution and the importance of water conservation. And so we just thought this would be a really neat way for them to kind of take part in something that actually ends up in the creek and could eventually end up in the Ohio River in a good way.
The fish will be cared for by students from the 2nd and 4th grades. The project will also be featured at the school's upcoming annual Water Conservation Fair later in the spring. In Huntington, I'm Mike Huff for Environment Matters.
The Stream Partners program is a cooperative effort of the West Virginia Conservation Agency, the DEP, the Division of Forestry, and the Division of Natural Resources. The program is housed within the DEP's Division of Water and Waste Management. Finally, every year our friends at Orsanco have a poster and t-shirt design contest for students to promote the annual Ohio River Sweep. Overall winners were Nick Bosick from Immaculate Heart of Mary School in Burlington, Kentucky for the poster design. And Abigail DeBazio from West Union High School in Ohio won the t-shirt design. One of the runners-up is from West Virginia. Savannah Soltis attends Moundsville Middle School in Marshall County. She was the winner in the 8th grade category. Congratulations to all the winners. Since 1989, the Ohio River Sweep has attracted volunteers to the riverbanks to remove tons of trash and debris. The River Sweep covers the entire length of the river from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to its confluence with the Mississippi at Cairo, Illinois, and includes nearly 3,000 miles of shoreline and many tributaries. The DEP coordinates the cleanup efforts on the West Virginia side of the river. This year's sweep is set for Saturday, June 17th. For information on how to volunteer or find a cleanup in your area, you can check out their website, or Sanko.org, and click on River Sweep. We leave you now along the tailwaters of Beech Fork Lake. On behalf of all of us at the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
More than 800 people with one mission, promoting a healthy environment. We are the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection.